Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm joined by Chris McCowen, and also I'm joined by Sean Conley, all the way from Australia. And Sean, we were talking about give us 9, we want more, give us 10. It stayed at 5. But that happens, doesn't it? We've seen it happen. We used Dundee last season as an example of that. But it was all about trying to turn the screw in the second half, hit the woodwork a few times, a couple of decent saves. It wasn't to be. But overall, a really good workout, particularly for the guys that came in today.
Yeah, by my count, we hit the woodwork 3 times in the second half. The keepers pulled off 3 point-blank saves, including a one-on-one from Vi. So really, I mean, I think those are the same sort of chances that were going in the net in the first half. So I don't know that. I mean, we were a little bit, our flow was a little bit disrupted by the substitutions and stuff like that. And Yang and Vi not really known, being on the same page as each other, which is expected when you've not really played together. But overall, great. 5-0, great performance. We'll definitely take it. It was good. The stadium announcer just at the end there gave man of the match to McCowen. I don't think anyone could really argue against that. I think that puts us on to 22 match unbeaten run in the league since March, 28 all in domestic. So looking forward to seeing those headlines in the newspapers.
Yeah. Outstanding run. And what does it mean? So we'll look at the other scores this afternoon. Dundee United, it's not finished yet, but they're beating St Mirren 2-0. And obviously they're up on the same points as our city rivals Rangers. Kilmarnock and Dundee drew 1 each. And Motherwell, probably the shock of the afternoon, were beaten 3-0 quite convincingly by Hibs. So what does it mean for the table then? Celtic, 5 points ahead of our nearest challengers, Aberdeen. We do, of course, meet them during the week. 14 points ahead of third-placed Rangers, who are tied with Dundee United, who have played a couple of games more. But at the foot of the table, Sean, Hearts now sit languished. Pressure, big pressure, as one man once said. And Hibs have leapfrogged them there, second bottom of the league. A couple of teams who really need to follow Aberdeen's lead this season, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that Midlothian team going down if it's possible this year. I mean, there are representatives in Europe. There's 3 teams representing Scotland in Europe, and one of them sitting down there with 9 points at the moment after however many games.
Listen, the table doesn't lie. It doesn't lie, right? But if I'm looking at Scottish football, and I'm looking at the top of the table here, Celtic, Aberdeen, Rangers, and Dundee United. Traditionally and historically, and it doesn't work like that, Hibs and Hearts should be up there, Chris. And although it's great when you've got a team like Hearts at the foot of the table and all the rest of it, these are teams that need to be in the top league for me. They need to get their act together. How do you feel about
it? I'm always going to be an advocate for Scottish football, and I want to see our clubs, particularly those established, and clubs that have got the larger fan base and the history. I want to see them, doing well within themselves. Obviously my sole focus is on Celtic, and I want us to, frankly, win everything. People say that's boring. I don't think so. I quite enjoy it, but you want to have a strong league, because you hate to hear the denigrating comments coming from down south and various other avenues. So for me, I'd like to see more clubs like Hibs, like Hearts, follow the kind of Aberdeen model at the moment, and change their focus and their priority a little bit. And overall, I want Scottish football to try and portray itself in a much more healthy light. I mean, the issue we've got with empty stadiums, for example, on TV coverage is diabolical, and there's a very easy solution to it, right? Just open it up to, fan bases like ours and fill the stadium, because I don't care whether you feel it gives one team an advantage or not. It portrays Scottish football in a much better light, and frankly, it's kind of it's dragging us down rather than us helping elevate Scottish football, which I think if we're allowed to, then we can. But yeah, to be honest, I mean, there are certain clubs that if they do go down, well, c'est la vie.
C'est la vie indeed. No mercy. You guys are hard to please, man. Stephen Broadley. Can't believe I'm saying that even Yang looked really good. At the beginning of the game, Sean, I said that there are a few areas actually in the squad that I would like to see strengthened in January. And the wing is one of them. Yeah, I know what Stephen's saying there. He comes in, he looks as though he's direct, etc. There's a few elements he's played that I didn't think were great. I'm not convinced. I'm still looking at our situation and thinking, right, Forrest is a good backup, but I would still have given the opportunity. I would still go the same way as Rodgers did with the likes of Iwata and Turnbull and Kwon. And I just think, move that type of player out and bring someone in who's got a better quality. I'm still not seeing it with Young. Maybe I'm being harsh. What do you think?
No, I think he did a good job of taking his man on, but his end product wasn't great. And you can see that, the proof's in the pudding. Not only did he not really get any shots on target, he didn't really look like getting an assist. He did look like he was going to get on the end of one, but again, he's not got the strength really. There was Ross County defenders around him, didn't have the strength to get away from those guys. So I think you're right. I think it's like, as much as he can take a man on, he's got pace, he's got great dribbling skills. I don't know. Maybe he'll still come good. We don't want to write players off. We've had these conversations in the past about players that have come good, and Rodgers must see something there. But I think at the moment he's certainly a downgrade on our first two, Maeda and Kuhn.
Yeah, and the thing is, he is persevering with them, Chris. It's not like he's just throwing them on a scrap heap. He's given them some minutes. I heard it said during that second half that he looked pretty bright when he came on against Leipzig. But I've not seen enough. I've not seen enough to say, listen, I'm convinced.
Like I said earlier, I think between now and the transfer window and whatever point during that we get our dealings done, I think this is the last chance saloon for maybe not permanently in Yang's case. I think Yang could be a contender for a loan. And a loan accomplishes two things. One, it gives you minutes and maybe allows the player to demonstrate his capabilities. Or the other side of the coin, maybe puts him in a shop window where you can actually recoup some of the investment from him. Palma, the fact he's not getting on the bench for even these domestic games at the moment, I think is telling. And I think, as I said, no ill will towards either player that is. But if we can acquire better players, better fits for the system, and players who I think will make a meaningful contribution to this team over the course of the rest of the season and beyond, I think they're the two players I would put most at risk at this point of being shipped out via one method or another.
Again, this might actually seem as if we're being negative, so we're going to have to go through the goals and all the brilliance in the first half. But sometimes I do look at that change, bringing on Yang for Maeda, and you think to yourself, right, would it not have been better maybe bringing in young Daniel Cummings and getting some minutes under his belt as well? I don't know. It's not like we're handing out minutes because it's easy for them to come by. Yang is an established first-team player, squad player anyway, and I would much rather focus on the positives after what was a brilliant first half. And I want to start off with the man of the match, Sean, because Luke McCowen was undoubtedly the man of the match, and 3 assists and 1 goal. But let's talk about the wider aspect of the midfield. Where is he? Because I remember after the midweek game saying that I think he's done really well since he's come in, but he's a 5th choice midfielder at the moment. Is that still the case?
I think it is, but I don't think that's really saying that he's bad in any way. I think we're just really strong in midfield. The commentary team on Celtic TV were having a bit of a stinker, but one of the things they did call out is that we do have great depth and quality in midfield, and him being 5th choice right now is not quite the same comparison as like a year and a bit ago when Odin Thiago Holm was 4th choice. Not so long ago, James McCarthy was 5th choice, so it's not like, I think it's to call him 5th choice sounds like you're saying he's not got quality, but that's not the case. We just have great depth and quality at the moment. Everyone was calling out for him midweek when we could see Hatate was cooked, and he was getting stripped. And he's played in Champions League and he's done well enough. And I think that's him in 3 goals domestically now. He's won man of the match today. I don't think anyone doubts that he's good enough to play in this Celtic midfield, particularly in games like today. And this is when we signed him. The conversation was, we're not signing this guy to be starting every game, but we're signing him to be a guy that's coming off the bench in Champions League, to be one that's starting games against Ross County when you're resting players, and it's proven to be a shrewd signing for that reason. He's a good player.
Shrewd. That's definitely the word that you would use. I mean, when you look at the transfer fee, for example, Chris, he comes in, and we've spoken about Scales. We'll come back to Scales. An unfashionable kind of signing coming in from Dundee, having played a fair bit of his football in the Championship, both for Dundee and Ayr United. And then it's been a season of firsts for him. So he gets his first game against Rangers and his debut. He scores his first goal against Hearts, I think it was. You know, he then makes his first European appearance for Celtic. And then he comes on today and he basically strolls it. He orchestrates the first half. He was brilliant. There was a couple of moments in the second half where he set up chances again that weren't put away. And he's basically saying to the gaffer, whenever I'm called upon, I won't let you down. There's going to be moments this season, I think, where I hope that he turns it on in Europe as well. And there is a snobbery, isn't there? There is a snobbery when we sign players domestically. I think the big thing as well was the age profile, because I think when we signed him, he was 26. You know, if it's a Lennon Miller style player, 17, 18-year-old, you're thinking, right, okay, bags of potential. But he's come into Celtic late, but he's maybe just a late bloomer, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, if there's snobbery, there's also a touch of ageism as well. And I think what maybe many of us don't necessarily appreciate is that at 26, you're a lot more mature and a lot more adaptable in terms of your life than you are at 21 or 20. You know, and I think, 26, I think at that point in your career, you're more likely to appreciate an opportunity like he's received and getting this move to Celtic. I mean, leaving out the fact that he is, he is a huge Celtic fan, and knows everything that the club's about. And I think, it is important that he recognises the expectations on a Celtic player. And I think he's rising to that. But, 26, he's not played, for a huge duration at a high level of football. For me, all you can ask this kid to do is come in and take his opportunity and show the kind of attitude and the kind of commitment and the kind of maturity that he's showing. And by God, he's doing it. And he's doing it, on a consistent basis when he gets the opportunity. I agree with Sean. I think, it's too simplistic to look at somebody as fifth choice and say, well, that means he's the fifth best midfielder there. I don't really view it like that. I think McCowen gives you something different to the other midfielders that play. Similar to Bernardo, similar to the way Hatate plays, there are specific roles that will require each of these players to play throughout the season, whether it be in domestic football, European, whether it comes at the point where you're having to close games out, for example. And I think McCowen absolutely fits that profile. Now, whether that's deliberate from the manager, that he's building a midfield like that, where he's got so many different type of options, or he's just been lucky enough to recruit players that come with that, I can't see a negative in it. I think McCowen, I wouldn't rate them in terms of that hierarchical structure. I would just say there are games where McCowen and Bernardo and Hatate and Engels will all come in and play a huge, meaningful part in this season. And I think it's a great problem for the manager to have.
Yeah, it is. It's a great dilemma, and there's certain areas of the park where we don't have the same strength and depth. And of course, we've seen a spell in that second half, Sean, when Callum McGregor wasn't on the park. We spoke about that as well. It's important to give him rest. It's important to bring Maeda off. Obviously, Kuhn and Kyogo got rest today. And I think what we're building is, in the past, we've had like squads up to 30 players, first team squads up to 30 players. It's a lot tighter now. There's a much tighter core group. And what that means is that the players within that group are getting game time. There's a few that have fallen outside of that kind of circle, Vrosky and Holm, maybe even Stephen Welsh. But the rotation is working and you're bringing in that quality. It didn't look disjointed with all the changes today.
I thought it looked disjointed at points, but not like, I think that's what it said to me was this is the reason why Rodgers tends to do 3 subs at once and on the 60 minutes, because when the subs were staggered like they were, it kind of there's like a little 3, 4, 5 minute adjustment spell each time. So that kind of disrupted the second half a bit, but certainly there wasn't a drop off in quality, which is I think the kind of point you're making. When in the first half, I had a thought in the first 15 minutes, like what Ross County did for their tactic was they tried to copy what Hearts and Brugge did, which was to try and mark Callum McGregor at the game. And they sacrificed the striker to put Jordan White to mark Callum McGregor. And we managed to work our way around it. And when McGregor goes off in the second half, what actually happens is the three players that we got on are so dynamic. It's Bernardo, Hatate, and McCowen, who are all like in their mid to early 20s, moving a lot, and they were actually kind of rotating in and out of the number 6 position. At some points it was Hatate in there, some points it was Engels, and they all looked really tidy in the ball. If anything, you would actually say Hatate's probably gubbed from all the football he's been playing, but if anything, you would say that he actually wasn't quite as sharp as the other ones. So I wonder if there's an argument to say that maybe it's a Bernardo turn to get a run in the team, at the moment, because Hatate, didn't look so sharp midweek and didn't look so sharp second half. So he might, again, not saying he's a bad player, done a lot of traveling, played a lot of football, just maybe needs a rest.
Yeah, and you've got that quality to step in. Now, Yang is a no for me, says Tony Daverin. And listen, I'm not trying to be harsh, especially when we've blown a team away there, 5-0 at half time. But we're well into a year and a half now. And I think about it. Give me a game where Yang has come on and absolutely up the tempo and changed the outcome of the match. And I'm probably struggling to get to that point. And from a winger's perspective, that is what you're kind of asking for. And we've shipped a few players out. I'm also getting Marquis, who thinks Yang looked okay. Loopy33 also comes in to say Yang doesn't have the movement off the ball to open up the defence. He has one trick, which is to get to the byline, nothing else to his game. But Brendan Rodgers is persevering with him. So we'll see if there's elements of his game that we've not yet seen in full flow. John McLaughlin says that he's someone in the wrong movie. Again, I'm reluctant to write just about anybody off under Brendan Rodgers.
Say, he's 22. He's still young.
He's still young. He is, absolutely. And Palma apparently is back in Honduras for family reasons at the moment. Now, the Slabber and Cabbage obviously is sitting on the fence. He hopes that Hearts get relegated. Hoorah. And obviously, there's a lot more to talk about. But yes, Bernardo's energy and wanting the ball often is why he starts for me. It could well be a game-to-game basis, as Sean says. There might not be a stuck-on best 11. It could be game-to-game basis. But one player who came in today, Chris, and who reminded us of the level of performance that he's been putting in for some time now, is Liam Scales. He opens the scoring. It was a powerful display, sets up the second goal. And it's great to have three centre-halves you can call upon and be confident with just about any permutation within the three.
It is, and I think it opens up that wider point that you made there when you're talking about Yang and Palma, for example, or you're talking about the kind of player you're bringing off the bench. For me, Brendan Rodgers is trying to build a squad whereby if he has to make substitutions or he chooses to make substitutions, he's not weakening the team. And I think, as Sean alluded to earlier, last year and years before that, when you were bringing players off the bench, you were weakening the team. You didn't have the confidence that we were going to play better. There was a couple of exceptions to that, but a lot of the players, in the last couple of recruitment windows, before we hit this season, you wouldn't have had the kind of faith or the trust that they were going to come in and actually not just maintain the level, but elevate the level that you're playing with. Now, I think when you look at the bench and you see Liam Scales and you're taking out Trusty or Carter Vickers, you're like, okay, that's fine. We know what we're going to get there. We're bringing in someone who can either contribute with goals, can do his job defensively, knows the player that he's playing, the players he's playing alongside, and so you don't have that fear that the levels or the balance is going to drop. I think McCowen, Bernardo, and maybe to an extent Vai. I think Vai is probably the weakest of the players coming in today, but we'll put that down to maybe match rustiness. But the fact is that we've got a squad of players that you can bring in and you won't look weaker. The levels won't take a dramatic drop off. Yeah, there'll be adjustment time, but they won't, your momentum and your tempo won't drop. I mean, I thought, okay, we didn't score any goals in the second half there, which we all hoped we would. We were all thinking, 7, 8, 9, 10. It could have been. But you're hitting the bar 3 times, and we were on the front foot. And actually, I found the second half quite entertaining to watch. A couple of good chances, and you think, well, an inch either side, and the ball goes in, or it goes past the keeper, and you've got those goals. But I still think, what Brendan's trying to build isn't just a strong first 11 now. It's like a strong, first 18 or 19 players. And that's where the challenge to players like Yang and Palma is coming from, because when they're coming in, they're not improving the side. In fact, they do feel at this moment in time like downgrades. Now, all sympathy to Palmer for what he's going through family-wise. And Yang, as Sean said, he's young, but you don't get a lot of time at this club. And with recruitment windows coming up, with the progress we're making in Europe, with the benefits being shown of smart investment, I think those positions could be at risk. And I think we could go in and get potentially players who, may even challenge for first team spots as opposed to just being established bench players. So this is the point where I think everybody in that dressing room will be looking at the role and saying, okay, God, this is a high standard, there's a high benchmark here. I need to play at my absolute top level to even be in and around this squad. And that's a good place for the club to be.
Yeah, anybody that comes in, I think you should be buying them with a view to being a first team player. Yeah. And then obviously you get that competition for places. People kept reminding me when we signed in Luke McCowen, Hartley and Robson were two examples that continually got used. I probably didn't realise until I looked back. Hartley was 30 going on 31 when we signed him. And his kind of club journey had been Hamilton Accies, Millwall, Wraith Rovers, Hibs, St Johnstone and Hearts. And then Barry Robson was 30, Inverness Calais, Forfar and Dundee United. So absolutely, there are gems out there. And there might still be a few gems in the Scottish game as well. Scales easily the best player today for Tony Daverin. And Daniel F says, Bernardo showing he's better than Engels in all departments. Price tags should not mean you start ahead of a better player. And I just think it's a case, Sean, of Brendan Rodgers managing all these different players, the expectations, the confidence levels of players who are in and out of the side. Adam Ida's spoken about how he's viewed his season. I thought Adam Ida was excellent today. Yes, he could have scored maybe 2 or 3 goals more, but it's good for his confidence to come in and get a goal and be in and amongst it. There was moments against Kilmarnock the other week where the ball was ricocheting off him. It was bouncing all over the place. Today, the ball was sticking to him, and it just shows that he's getting that groove back again, I think.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I was actually thinking that too. I can't remember what game it was specifically where you're right. It was just taking real heavy touches. It was going all over the place. But in the first half especially, he was playing. There was a point where he plays a 1-2 with Luke McCowen, and it was like a 30-yard first touch 1-2 between them, and it was like, okay, he looks on it now. He looks like this is the one we had at the end of last season. And I know it's such a cliche to say, like, big players take a bit of a while to get, loosened and get running. It's such a cliche, but he's certainly fitting into that at the moment. He's been getting gradually better, and he's started to look at today. Today's probably his best performance this year. I don't know. I can't think of a better one. But he was sensational at the end of last year. Kilmarnock away, Scottish Cup final. He could have easily had a hat trick today. That one off the bar. Couple of saves from the goalkeeper. Yeah, it was a very good all-round performance. And everyone was complaining a couple of weeks ago, wasting money, and we were saying, just wait. And then we're now back to the position we were in April and May, where we've got two top-class strikers. Kyogo doesn't even get off the bench today, doesn't need to. That's luxury. When your best striker can stay on the bench for a whole game, right? That's depth and quality.
Without a doubt. And, we've been banging on about Kuhn's minutes, the ratio of goals and assists per minute and all this kind of stuff. McCowen must have a decent record. I don't know if you've got the figures in front of you, Sean. He must have a decent record because he's not started many games. He's not played many 90 minutes, if any. Yet he has chipped in with assists and goals. And I think when we check that out, we were talking again about Matt O'Reilly's goal contributions and how we had to players had to step up and cover that. McGregor's been doing it. Kuhn's been doing it. McCowen's probably been contributing to that as well. I'll let Sean work that out while you and I talk about something else, Chris. Yeah, there you go. No pressure.
Yeah, but actually, just on McCowen, I mean, there's one thing that really stood out for me today, and it stands out every time I see him play. He plays without fear. He absolutely takes the responsibility, and you see him in every game. I mean, there's been players over the years that you watch a game, you think, I can't figure out what he's contributed to the match. With McCowen, every time he's come in, you see him on the ball, he gets involved, he puts himself about, he wants the ball, he takes the responsibility. I love that about the player. I really, really do. Time will tell how his Celtic career will develop. It is still very early, and again, you've got to be mindful of the opposition and the level of opposition we were playing today. I think, nobody would say Ross County's on the level of a Leipzig or a Dortmund or anything like that. But it's just the way he plays. It's the attitude that he brings when he plays. The impetus, the incentive to take the ball. It's fantastic to see. I really think he's quickly becoming. You can already see it with the comments. He's quickly becoming a fan favourite, but he's certainly becoming one of my favourite players at the club, and I'm desperate to see him just keep taking the opportunities, keep putting himself in the manager's mind, and I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before we see him really play a meaningful part in Europe.
It's only a matter of time before he gets a game for Scotland for me. Sean, have you managed to do the maths?
Should be doing it by now. Yeah.
I think so. If I'm working this out correctly, it's a goal or an assist every 56 minutes, which isn't quite Kuhn levels, but it's pretty good.
That's brilliant, yeah. Bad. So what we're talking, 3 goals and 3 assists?
3 goals, 3 assists, yeah.
That is
I'm working this out correctly.
Aye, that's brilliant. And there comes a point, and it's a wee bit like the scales conversation that we've had previously in the Ralston conversation. You just stop going on about the journey that it took for them to get in. They're just established first-team players, Sean. And McCowen, isn't far away from, we're no longer talking about him being a championship player and all this kind of stuff. I read a great story about he was a lifeguard at a swimming pool. I think it was in Greenock. I don't want to upset anybody from Greenock / Gourock, because I know that there seems to be some kind of rivalry there, some kind of tribalism. And he was a part-timer, and the Morton players were coming up and like kind of lording it over him. And you think to yourself, there's something in there, because McCowen has gone on to obviously join Celtic, work under Brendan Rodgers, play in the Champions League. He's not far away from starting to win trophies with Celtic. It won't be the League Cup because he's cup tied. But sometimes when I hear a story, Sean, it's the disappointments that kind of fuels the fire of a player. And it's almost as if he's making up for lost time when I see him on that park. He wants every ball. He's demanding it. He's got that confidence already as a Celtic player.
I think there's a lot to what you're saying. And also just broadly as well, bringing in new players that don't have all those winners' medals, which is not to say, McGregor and Forrest aren't hungry, but I think there's just a bit of different hunger you get from these players that haven't done that, and they want it, and then all the other players around them know how to, and just everyone's pulling in that direction. And as you mentioned as well, he is a bit more mature, so he knows that he's not going to get, but this is a chance for him, he's also got confidence, all those things you mentioned as well. I think it's worth calling back, and some of the details are a little bit hazy to me, but I think it was 2008 when we lose the game 1-0 to Motherwell, I think. And I think we've got Brown and Donati in midfield that day. And we lose 1-0 to Motherwell. And then the next game we play Motherwell again, and Robson and Hartley start. And I think we win that game, maybe 2-1. And Robson and Hartley basically start every game in centre mid from then until the end of the season. And we turn around, I think it was a 9-point deficit to win the league at Tannadice that year. So these players have got they might be on the bench at one point. They might be coming in as, 4th, 5th choice squad players, but they can win you a league.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, talking of winning leagues and players who know how to do it, Callum McGregor. Again, a lot of his performances, I think sometimes he performs really well and he goes under the radar. We don't even discuss him. I think sometimes we're guilty of that. Whenever he has a bad game, particularly if it's in Europe, he's getting written off. Remember some of the chat after the Borussia Dortmund defeat? A lot of that was around Callum McGregor and the pace and the fact that he's not got the strength and the athleticism. I think now, at this stage of the season, he's got 6 goals. And I'm just having a look at the seasons gone by. Only on 2 occasions has he hit double figures for Celtic, right? Over an entire campaign. And in those 2 seasons, he played 55 and 52 games. And only one other time, on one other occasion, has he scored more than 6 goals in an entire campaign, when he hit 7 back in 2016-17, the Invincible season. So he's having something at this stage, Chris, of a vintage campaign in terms of goals. And again, today, it was just a tremendous strike. You look at what Brendan Rodgers adds to players' games, and sometimes it's at the end of their career, the tail end of their career. You look at how he's reinvigorated Jamesy Forrest after he was written off last season. Yeah. I'm seeing a bit of that with Callum this season.
Yeah, just point out, James Forrest lasted the full 90 minutes today. About that. So, but yeah, I agree. I think, we know there was a good pre-existing relationship between Callum McGregor and Brendan Rodgers, and I think For me, I think I don't know how much coaching you'd have to do with a player like Callum McGregor, because he's adapted his game over the years so well, and he's become such a vital part of the way we play at the moment. And he looks as though he's enjoying it as well. I mean, you'll get the benefits of the international retirement. It's a big loss for Scotland, but I just think at the moment he's thriving in that Celtic shirt. He's thriving with the captaincy. I do think he's a player, because of the way he plays and the responsibility that he takes on, the way he plays, that we do have to give him as much protection as possible, particularly in Europe when we might be on the back foot, because by the very nature of the position he plays, it's a position that you'll always get exposed at by teams when they're coming at you, they're trying to play around you. And that's where I think players like Bernardo come in handy, because he's got the movement and ability, and I think the positional sense to really assist McGregor. And I think actually McCowen did some of that today as well. You get that real dynamism, whereas Hatate's moving just more forward thinking, and Engels is still trying to find his feet a little bit. But I just think it seems like we've been so fortunate with captains over the last few years. Scott Brown, you just think, how are we ever going to cope without him? McGregor, completely different type of personality, I think, on the field to Brown, but he's found a way to just be so effective and bring so much value to the team. And now that he's chucking in these outside the box goals, he just suddenly seems like he's added something new to his locker. And whether that's something he's always had, and he's now just getting the opportunity to express it. But do you know what? He's playing with confidence. He's playing with the kind of almost carefree attitude of an older player. It's like, okay, I've won all this. And I mean, I know, Sean, you were talking about, players get older, maybe they don't have quite the same hunger if they've won all the trophies. But I think, what you are getting, conversely, with somebody like McGregor, he's saying, well, I know what I'm up against here. I know how to play, in this team, and I know what it takes to play at this level. And you know what? I'm going to go and actually enjoy myself, and I'm going to have the speculative shot for outside the box. I'm going to take those driving runs into the edge of the box, and I think we're getting the benefits of it. Yeah, all of them. So I think we're getting the benefit.
Yes.
6 times. So I think, he looks a player that's just happy and comfortable in his own skin and the role he's playing, and hopefully he's got a good few years in him yet to do that. But I've got to go back to it. You're talking about the type of character and the type of personality that we get our best captains from. Look, McCowen, if he keeps going the way he's going, it's not out with the realms of possibility, is it? He could be donning that armband in a few years.
We were talking just yesterday about the leaders. Brendan's building a team of leaders. You've got Schmeichel at the back, who was the guy that did the impromptu huddle. You're looking at, Trusty's looking like a leader, Carter Vickers and Alistair Johnston at the back. And then you move up the park, and you've got a team full of leaders, all in different ways. Callum McGregor looks as though he's going to hit 500 appearances. He's only 17 appearances off hitting that, which is incredible. But Sean, people keep going on about his age and the regression and all the rest of it. I tend to look at that and think he's only 31. I mean, let's be honest. In the modern game, so many top class, I'm talking Champions League class players, play until after 35. Why can't Callum?
Well, if I was to answer your question you're hypothetically asking, it's because he's centre mid and he's theoretically playing box to box. And no, he's not done that for a while. He's been very much a holding midfielder since Scott Brown retired, so that certainly elongates his career. Obviously, we've kind of leaned on him very heavily in the last few years, and we saw the kind of blowback from that last year where he missed a lot of games. He's only missed 2 this year, and hopefully being retired from Scotland, we'll see that flip around and we won't have the same issue as last year. But yeah, he's got at least 2 more years. And I know you're saying Luke McCowen looks like captain material, and it's hard to argue against. You could even make a case for Scales if he was an automatic choice. I just totally wild card. Just going to chuck out there. No, I'm going to get shot at here, but I'm going to chuck in the name Lennon Miller as a future captain.
Well,
Lennon Miller. I'll tell you what, that.
We need to sign him first.
another player I never mentioned, but who captains the under-21s is Paulo Bernardo. Because I don't look at him and think captain material, but he obviously has the attributes of his captain in his country at under 21 level. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Paddy Lavery blames Jerry Taylor for the second half drop-off. Ian Roy says it was a second half training session. That happens. At half-time, we were going on about 9-0s and 9-1s that I remembered in my lifetime. And we went out and we didn't score in the second half. David, 5-0, yet you feel disappointed. 1-1 in the Champions League the other night, and I felt disappointed. I just think it shows you, it's a measure of where we are as a football team right now, the way that we're playing under Brendan, that things like that are resulting in disappointment, which is a good place to be. It's not like we're entitled and all that. It's just that we're very highly demanding as a fan base. And I think Brendan Rodgers lives that as well, lives and breathes it. We're sitting pretty at the top of the league. Only one game have we failed to win in the league, and that was a draw against Aberdeen. We play them on Wednesday night. We'll be covering the game as always. Tomorrow night, actually, Chris will be joining me in Gracie's in Glasgow, because John Collins will be in the city to speak to a Celtic State of Mind live. He's a good guy. He's absolute class. I think there's a persona that people have, of him. They think that he's got a certain persona, an idea of that. And he's not like that at all. He's just a Celtic fan who lives a laugh at himself, actually. So come along. There's a couple of tickets left, not many. Ticket link underneath the video. And there is still a Black Friday offer, even though it's Saturday. All you need to do is put in Acsom 1888, all lowercase, and there's a nice wee discount in there as well for all Acsom live tickets. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved as always. And thank you once again to Chris McCowen and to Sean Connolly for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.
Yo, guys.